I never planned to have children. As a cardiothoracic surgeon, my entire life has been devoted to medicine. Every step of my journey to becoming a doctor was challenging. I wasn't exactly a model student in high school. With barely passing grades and a reputation for cutting classes, no university would accept me. I started taking basic courses at Valley Community College, determined to prove I could do better. It took years of night classes and summer sessions, but I finally got accepted to medical school at 28. That's where I met my husband, though he wasn't a medical student. He worked in the university's communications department. From our first date, I was clear about not wanting kids. I'd always thought that if I ever wanted to be a parent, adoption would be my path. He seemed completely fine with this. We got married after I finished my residency, and for 3 years everything was perfect. Then last spring his college friend had twins. Suddenly my husband couldn't stop talking about having our own baby. I kept explaining that I was just starting to build my practice after 12 years of training. The timing wasn't right. Maybe in a few more years we could discuss it. Last July, I discovered I was pregnant despite our precautions. I seriously considered termination, but after many long discussions with my husband, we came up with a plan. He would leave his job to be a full-time parent until our child was ready for preschool. The arrangement made sense for several reasons. My salary was much higher than his marketing income, and I'd worked too hard to step away from medicine now. Most importantly, I knew I couldn't be happy as a stay-at-home mom. I respect those who choose that path, but it's not for me. I also had personal reasons for not wanting daycare until our child was older. Due to trauma in my own childhood, I'm extremely protective about leaving young children with strangers, especially before they can clearly communicate. My husband understood all of this and was excited about being the primary caregiver. Our daughter arrived in January. My maternity leave flew by, and when she was 8 weeks old, I had to attend an important medical conference in Denver. It was only 3 days, but it would be my husband's first time alone with the baby. The conference was incredibly valuable for my practice, but when I got home, something felt off. My husband was quiet and distant. After putting our daughter down for her nap, I finally got him to open up. He broke down completely, telling me how isolated and overwhelmed he'd felt during those 3 days. Then he dropped the bomb. He wanted to go back to his old job and suggested I should either extend my leave or switch to remote work. When I reminded him about our agreement regarding daycare, he said maybe we should consider it anyway. I completely lost my composure. If I had known you would back out of caring for our daughter, I would never have had this baby, I shouted. The moment those words left my mouth, I regretted them. I love our daughter more than anything. She's the best surprise I've ever had. But I was furious with my husband for going back on his word, especially when this arrangement was the foundation of our decision to become parents. After that fight, I realized how cruel my words had been. Using our daughter as a weapon in an argument was unforgivable. Even if things fell apart completely and I had to leave my practice to raise her alone, I would do it in a heartbeat. She's my world now. I also started to see how I'd failed to support my husband through this transition. For the first 7 weeks after our daughter's birth, my mother had stayed with us, helping him learn the ropes of childcare. They split the responsibilities pretty evenly, working as a team. Then suddenly my mom went home, and just a few days later, I left for the conference. Going from having a partner in childcare to being completely alone was a huge adjustment that I hadn't properly considered. To give us both space to think, I took our daughter to stay at my sister's place for a few days. My husband came by every afternoon to spend time with the baby, but we agreed not to discuss our issues yet. When we finally sat down to talk, I apologized for my outburst. To my relief, he had his own apology ready. He explained that he never actually intended to abandon his commitment to being a stay-at-home dad. The isolation and sudden responsibility had overwhelmed him, making him question his abilities. He felt terrible for suggesting I give up my practice, and promised to give full-time parenting another try. During our conversation, we identified the real problems. It wasn't caring for our daughter that overwhelmed him. It was trying to manage household chores on top of childcare. The loneliness was also taking a toll. Together, we came up with solutions. We hired a cleaning service to come twice a week and subscribed to a meal delivery service that sends pre-portioned ingredients and recipes. My husband joined a local parents group that meets 3 times a week at the community center. My sister-in-law Rachel, who works from home, offered to watch the baby for a few hours every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday so my husband could hit the gym or just have some time to himself. Most importantly, I made sure he knew that if being a stay-at-home parent ever became too much, he could tell me without fear. While I'd be disappointed about changing our arrangement, I'd be far more upset knowing he was suffering in silence. We also started working on strengthening our marriage. Date nights became a weekly priority, though with my anxiety about leaving our daughter with non-family members, these usually meant long walks with the stroller or takeout and movies at home after she's asleep. It's not fancy, but spending that focused time together has made a huge difference. Some online comments on my situation suggested my husband might have tampered with our protection to deliberately get me pregnant. I never entertained this idea. Making such a serious accusation would destroy the trust in our marriage, especially when we were already working through issues. Instead, we've dealt with the birth control question directly. My husband is scheduled for a vasectomy later this year. Until then, we're being extra careful. Looking back, I see how many signs there were that I needed to address my past trauma. The anxiety about leaving our daughter with anyone outside the family isn't healthy, so I've started seeing my therapist again. I hadn't needed therapy for years before this, but becoming a mother has brought up fears I thought I'd dealt with long ago. I know I need to work through these feelings to be the best mother and partner I can be. Many people advised me to leave my husband, saying his breakdown was just the first sign of bigger problems to come. But they're judging our entire relationship based on its worst moment. They didn't see how he supported me through the most challenging times of my medical training. I remember one night during my board exam preparation. These exams basically determine your entire future as a doctor. I had dinner plans with my husband, but was so exhausted from studying that I fell asleep at my desk and stood him up. When he came to check on me 2 hours later, I completely broke down. Through my tears, I told him I couldn't do it anymore, that becoming a doctor was too hard. Instead of getting upset about the missed date, he spent the whole night comforting me. For the next 6 weeks, he brought me meals twice a day, did my laundry, fed my cat, and gave me back rubs when I was too tense from hunching over textbooks. Every time I doubted myself, he was there to remind me of my dream and why I started this journey. That's the kind of man my husband is, someone who puts his partner's needs first when things get tough. Now it's my turn to do the same for him as he adjusts to his new role. The changes we've made are working. Our daughter is 6 months old now, and my husband has found his groove as a stay-at-home dad. The cleaning service and meal deliveries take enough off his plate that he can focus on enjoying time with our baby. The parents' group has become a real source of friendship. He even organized a weekly coffee meetup with 2 other stay-at-home dads from the group. Rachel, my sister-in-law, has been amazing too. Those few hours of me time she gives my husband 3 times a week have made a huge difference in his mental health. She's also teaching him how to bake, which has become his new hobby during the baby's nap times. As for me, I'm back at work full-time and loving it. Being a mother has actually made me a better doctor. I have more empathy for my patients and their families now. My practice is growing, and I've recently taken on a leadership role in my department. Coming home to my husband and daughter after a successful surgery makes even the longest days worthwhile. Sure, our life isn't perfect. Some days are harder than others, and we're still learning how to balance everything. But watching my husband reading to our daughter or hearing her laugh when he makes silly faces, those moments remind me that we made the right choice in working through our problems. The biggest lesson I've learned is that it's okay for both partners to struggle sometimes. What matters isn't that we never have doubts or breakdowns, but how we handle them together. My husband had a moment of weakness and was honest about it. Instead of giving up, we found solutions and grew stronger as a family. Looking ahead, we're both excited about our daughter starting preschool in a few years. My husband is already researching early childhood education and thinking about returning to work part-time once she's in school. We're taking things one day at a time, supporting each other, and focusing on what matters most, our family. For now, I'm just grateful that we didn't let one bad moment destroy everything we've built together. Sometimes the hardest challenges lead to the best outcomes, and that's definitely been true for us. Our daughter may not have been planned, but she's helped us become better versions of ourselves, more patient, more understanding, and more willing to work through difficulties instead of running from them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.